Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Winning Women Talk Show. I'm your host, Regina Shearer, and I'm so glad that you could join us this evening for our show. If you are a regular viewer or listener, you know that each and every week we bring on a different woman who shares her journey to success. And that journey doesn't necessarily have to be one where success is all about money. It could be that success is just doing what she's passionate about, what she loves doing, what was her career goal. But as you have been listening, I think you find that there are some commonalities to these women, that they are women who seek to do things that benefit other people. And so we hope um, to that the guest tonight will be someone who stimulates you, motivates you, inspires you, and helps you to be able to say to yourself, if she can do it, so can I. And um, I am so happy to introduce our guest this evening. We're having some technical difficulties, and I'm not quite sure why, but we are going to hope that she can connect with us and go back out. And there she is. Hello, Michelle. How are you?
Hi, Regina. I'm good.
Okay. We are so glad you were able to be with us this evening. Um, I've already introduced the show, but I want to tell our viewers and our listeners a little bit about you this evening. And so before I do that, I want you to know that you are able to connect to us on this show in a couple of different ways. And one is that you can call us at 781-384-5587. And so, once again, I'll repeat that number 781-384-5587. Or you can email me, Regina at rgbinternetradio.com. That's Regina at rgbinternetradio.com. And so, as I was saying,
And
we would love to hear from you. And there you are. I don't know what's going on, but I'm glad you can keep getting back in, Michelle. As you've already seen, our guest is Michelle Allen. And Michelle is a motivational speaker whose target audiences are parents and professionals who work in or with individuals in schools, prisons, and with mental health issues. She is an eager and driven person with a natural passion for inspiring others, seeking to leverage strong communication skills and interpersonal skills in a motivational speaking opportunity. Now, prior to utilizing that natural gift she possesses for speaking, Michelle was the owner and operator of a children's daycare center for over 18 years. And during that time, she spent countless hours helping parents to navigate the challenges of caring for young children, especially those children with mental health issues. And she helped them, those children and parents, to care for themselves. She refers to her work at that time with parents as being a parent influencer, which has influenced the motivational speaking that she does. Michelle is also a volunteer worker. She assists with local community events and as a team coach for an AAU team. She's an educator, a parent, an influence speaker, a motivational speaker, and a facilitator, and much, much more than that. She has been recognized for her achievements and for her abilities. And so at this time, I just want to say, welcome, Michelle, to the Winning Women Talk Show. I hope she must have gone out and is trying to come back in, but we will hope that everything works out for her to get back into the studio. And so, as you can tell, this is a woman who has a lot of skills and competencies. And I'm excited about the things she's going to share with us tonight because many times people are very focused when they're working, especially with children who have issues that involve mental health issues, whether it's anxiety, ADD, ADHD, or other things, autism, being on the spectrum, etc. It can be very challenging and very exciting at the same time. And so we're this is a woman who has spent her life around children, and I when I first met her and talked with her, I said, what a unique person you are, because I just don't have the ability. I can be around children, but doing it day in and day out, that takes a special type of person, especially when they're young children. And plus, she has 5 kids of her own. So, um, anyway, Michelle, welcome to the Winning Women Talk Show. And I hope that whatever is going on, that it's fixed for now because it looks good.
Me too. Thank you, Regina.
So, I always start the show by asking our guests, tell us about yourself. Tell us about your background and this journey that you've taken. What was it like growing up, and how did you get engaged with taking care of so many children, and then moving from that to caring about their parents and children who had challenges and doing what you do now?
Okay. So my name is Michelle Allen. I grew up in the Hartford, Connecticut area, and I come from a background of poverty. So, my mom wasn't rich, my dad wasn't rich. We worked paycheck to paycheck. We lived in the projects. So, growing up was a struggle, but back then, struggles didn't seem the way they seem now, right? So, as a child, we were resilient. We just lived, we had fun. We didn't know we were in poverty, right?
Right.
So we just grew up and we didn't know we were in poverty and everything. And for me, I came from a background where my mom is Black and American Indian,
Hmm.
and my stepdad was Black, and I grew up in a home like that. That was the only dad I knew growing up. My biological father is French Canadian. And so, growing up in the household, in an all Black household, being the color that I was, it was a struggle, right? Because I never felt like I fit in. I always knew I was different. And every time we went out, I'm trying to explain to people I'm Black. And they're like, yeah, okay. They started thinking something was wrong with me, right? Because here I am trying to prove I'm Black. I knew all the answers to all the Black questions. And, just growing up was very hard for me to try to fit in. And so I had a brother who was older than me, and it was us for at least 11 years. And then my mom had a set of twins. And then 3 years later, she had another child. And those kids were never, I never felt like they were my siblings. I took care of them a lot. That's where the caretaking started for me, right? Because I was always taking care of them. Then I took care of my younger cousins. And growing up, like in school, I would get up, I would go to school. I had straight A's as a student. I was a straight A student. And I had a lot of struggles because, on top of taking care of my younger siblings, I came from a household where there was a lot of abuse, right? So I sustained a lot of abuse, mental, physical, sexual, emotional. And I had to still move through that, right? To get the grades that I was excelling for, because I knew I wanted better in life. I didn't know what that looked like at the time, but I knew it definitely wasn't what it was. And I had to continue to push through. Well, at 14, I had my first nervous breakdown, and I went into the hospital. And at that time, I started realizing I couldn't let this thing take me down, because there's other children out there who are going to need a voice. I didn't have a voice. It was just my voice and no one was listening. And so that's when I started saying, I have to help children. I have to grow
Mm,
up and I have to be something that they can trust, they can confide in. And so as I got older, I decided to open up a daycare. And at that time, it did start in my home and it got so big, right? I couldn't tell people no. So they were asking me, I need to get my child in? And I'm like, oh, they had this story, that story. I don't like the daycare. My child's not getting, the services they need. And so I just kept opening the door. It got so big that I bought another house to do the daycare out of.
mhm,
And at that time, parents were calling me 24/7. They had problems in their marriages, problems with trying to get services for their children who had autism, who had, signs of ADHD. And so that's when I started becoming a resource. So now I'm going from daycare provider helping children develop. And then I started moving into the field of advocating for parents. I was the voice behind the parents who didn't have a voice. I was
mm,
the resource. I'm looking up materials for all these parents and I'm helping solve these problems. And one day a parent said to me, you ever thought about becoming like a life coach or a motivational speaker? And I was like, no, because all my life growing up, I heard I talk too much. So hear this spiritual blessing, right? Because I'm very spiritual. So this spiritual blessing is in me, right? And everyone's just shutting it down. You talk too much. So now I'm at the point where I'm like, I don't even want to talk because I've
mm,
heard that all my life. But I just kept finding myself, Regina, in situations where I was led to talk. And it was openings, doors opening for me to be present to speak. And most of my life I thought I was going to be a singer. I love the microphone. You give me the microphone and I'm going to put on a show. But I wasn't to be a singer because I can't sing. And so I was kind of disappointed. I grew up disappointed because I really thought I was going to get that voice one day. And God showed me one day it was never a singer, but it was definitely a speaker. And that's where the microphone came in. So when that came to me, I was like, "Oh, wow, speaking." I was like, "Okay, I could do that." And so I decided during the time of the daycare, I tried to get out several times. I did. I tried to close the daycare. The parents wouldn't let me go. They wouldn't let me leave. And I had parents who were like social workers for DCF, Department of Children and Families. I had correctional officers' children. I had lawyers' children. I had doctors' children. So I had some kids that were in here and their parents were like top notch, right? And they wouldn't let me leave. So at that time, COVID happened. And I thought, oh my God, you opened the door for real this time because now the business started to decline and I had a way out. And it was during COVID that I realized I was to do more. I was to speak, I was to go out. And it was during COVID that I did some speakings. I was on podcasts for New Me, New You. She had a live platform where she did a lot of different shows, and I was, one of the guest speakers on
mhm,
several of her shows. I've spoken at schools. I've spoken even at the prisons. I've spoken at the prisons. So I've been like putting myself out there and realizing, wow, when you have a gift, that's just what it is. It's a gift. It's
mm.
not anything I've ever dreamed of doing. No one just wakes up and says, I want to be a motivational speaker, right? But through the life challenges, my life journey, all of the experiences, I have been through a lot. So I have firsthand knowledge of what it's like to go through a lot. And
Mhm,
so that's pretty much how it all started for me. That's what led me to be driven to speak life into people, to help people, to motivate people to realize that no matter what you go through in life, no matter where you are in life, it's not your final destination. So you are just on a journey, and everything you pick up on that journey is for the future when you are going into your calling, into your purpose. You're going to need all those tools you picked up along the way. And that's exactly what I try to tell people, I try to enlighten people with.
A lot of people use the term resiliency, right?
Yes.
And based on what you've shared with us, that term, and I'm picking this up from a an email that came
Oh,
through.
okay.
Um, that term is, oh, it's out there now. It's part of
Yes.
the Webster Dictionary
Yes.
new definition, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, Along with the those acronyms like grit and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
But it sounds like this is the email. It sounds like resiliency has been a major part of your life. You've
Yes.
recovered and you've overcome and you've moved forward. So, what was one of the hardest things that you had to practice resiliency doing?
Hmm. Forgiveness.
Mm,
Forgiveness. And I learned at a young age, through all the abuse, through all the letdowns, I had to learn at a young age that forgiveness had nothing to do with them, but everything to do with me. And I learned that very young, that it was better to forgive than to hold it in. Because if I held it in, I would live through it longer. So I had to let that go. So forgiveness for me was one of the biggest.
yes. And I love that because that's usually somewhere at the crux of why people can't move forward,
Right.
right?
Exactly.
So I love that. Be, and I know and understand that when you forgive, you not only free the person from the, and I'll just put it this way, the chains, the that you've been carrying, or you feel bound by because of what they did or
Right.
said,
Right.
but you free yourself,
Yes. Yes.
and that's a great thing. But it sounds like you're helping parents to become resilient in what they're dealing with their children.
Yes. Yes, because today a lot of parents, let's face it, a lot of parents aren't parenting today. So a lot of these parents today are kind of trying to figure out their lives, right? They have past traumas, they have things that they feel that they've never dealt with, right? And so now they have these children, and the children today, because this generation is way different than when I was coming up. This generation has a lot going on, and parents today find it very hard to parent because of everything that they have going on. Back in the day, you had one parent working in the household. Now you have multiple parents working in the household. Both parents are working in the household. The kids are in school. Who's at home with the kids? So parents are very overwhelmed and very stressed now. And so what I do is I give them little bits and pieces of how to take a situation and to make it easier, right? I tell them they have to set boundaries. It's very important that you set boundaries with children early. It's also very important that you allow children to express their emotions. A lot of parents get very frustrated with children when children are crying, and it's like, oh, what are you crying over? It's time to go to bed. And they don't realize that's a natural thing for a child to be upset. They're expressing their emotions, and that's okay. When we tell a child to stop crying, and we tell a child to cut it out, or we show them how to not deal with their emotions. And then what happens is they grow up to become adults who don't know how to deal with their emotions. And so they shut down when they get upset. They walk away when they get upset. Because no one's ever given them the allowance to show or to go through their emotions, right? Because we shut it down. Just like with my mom and my dad, I talk too much. So they kind of shut that down for me without realizing that that was a gift. I had a gift at a young age. And so that's what I try to get parents to see, and it's tough because a lot of parents are frustrated right now. The world is different. And so I try to be a comfort. I try to be something that they can take and be motivated by, right? Give them hope that they can do this thing called parenting. And that's what I try to provide for them as well as for the children.
Yeah, and I'm curious, because you said something that made me wonder. So you've been in this for a while. You've
Yes.
parented your own children. You've parented other people's children. You've
Hmm.
parented parents,
Yes.
and
Yes.
each generation of parents was parented differently than
Yes.
how that generation is influenced, and that's how I'm going to put it, is influenced to parent their children, right?
Yes.
There are
Right.
different messages in each generation that affect, because some of us do it, try to do it just like our parents did with us. And
Yes.
some of us are like, no way am I going to raise my kids that way. And
Exactly.
others are just, well, the book says, right?
Exactly.
you know, but uh, so I was going to ask you about that, but I'm going to hold that question because
Okay.
we have someone on the line
Okay.
and I want to take this call.
Okay.
Okay. Good evening, caller, and welcome to the Winning Women Talk Show. You are on the air with Michelle Allen. Welcome.
Hi, good evening, Dr. Regina. Good evening, Michelle. I've really
Good
been
e-
enjoying what I've heard so far from you, Michelle. I really love your energy. Um, and I love that you said that you're from Hartford because I'm from Connecticut. I was born in West Hartford, and I
Okay.
have family in Hartford. So that was cool to hear.
Okay.
I did want to make a comment on what you said about how, you know, parents sometimes struggle with um, their kids crying.
Yes.
And it brought me back to my childhood where, you know, we would cry for different reasons,
Hmm.
but my parents would never dismiss it in a way, you know. And granted, my parents are from a different generation than some of the
Yes.
younger parents now. And every parent's style might be a little different.
Yes.
But one thing that I found helpful looking back was we weren't dismissed if we cried. They would eventually say, "What's wrong?" You know, and just
Hmm.
that alone would help in
Yeah.
so many situations because it gave you the chance to express that
Exactly.
you were upset,
Hmm.
why you were upset, and that it mattered that they heard you. Whether
Right.
they were going to agree with what you were upset about or, you know, acquiesce to it was one thing, but
Right.
at least you were acknowledged. And I'm so glad you raised that point because I think that that is very important emotionally to a child to understand that your parent cares that you're hurting, you're crying.
Yes. Yes.
So I wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Yes. And you are absolutely right. So different time, right? Different generation. And yes, our parents did ask more back then, like what's, going on, or, why are you crying, or why are you still crying? That was my mom's question for me. Why are you still crying? And it gave us a chance to express ourselves, our feelings. And that's very important because a lot of times, like I said, today children get shut down. They're made to feel that them crying is not good. It's a bad thing. And I feel that kids need to know, right? You're the parent, they're the child, but they also have a voice and they should be heard, and the parent should show that they are concerned as to what is going on with this, my child. Like, why are you upset? So example, I have a 6-year-old, and the other day I had to take her tablet. and she cried. And I said to her, come on. I walked her down the hallway. I said, I'm going to give you a safe space to cry so that you can take your space, you can cry it out, and then we can come back together and we can talk about it. So she did. She stopped. Stopped crying, and I said, so what's the matter? I'm upset. You took my tablet. I said, okay, but do you understand why I took your tablet? She said, yes, I do. I said, okay. And as the parent, I have to make these decisions that are based that are better for you. And you're not old enough to make these decisions. So when I take something from you, it is absolutely okay to be upset. What's not okay though is for you to, try to throw tantrums where you can hurt yourself, where you can, that's unsafe. And if you need a place to go, just ask me for a safe place. And when I tell you, that child actually came back to me days later and said, it makes me feel better that you actually let me cry because my mom never let me cry. I always got in trouble for crying. So it gave me the satisfaction of knowing this is what they need, right? This is exactly what children need. And a lot of parents don't know because they're frustrated. The child crying just drives people crazy sometimes because the patience is lost. Why is the patience lost? Because we don't have time anymore to be patient because we're constantly in a world that races. We're racing to catch up and it's very hard. So I think it really is important that we allow children to express themselves so that they grow up happy and healthy adults,
Yeah.
managing their emotions.
Well, caller, are you still there?
Yes.
Okay. So I hope that she gave you an answer that made that answered your question. Is there anything else that you wanted to say or state?
No, no. I'm actually, so I can hear it more clearly. I'm going to hang up so I can play back. I heard some of what she said, but not all on my end. But just let her know that I appreciate her feedback, and I'm looking forward to listening to it. And I know that it's sound and something good that I need to hear. So thank you, Michelle.
You're
God
welcome.
bless you for what you're doing.
You
And
too.
maybe I'll
Thank
run into
you.
you one day.
Yes, definitely.
Have a nice night.
You too.
Thank,
Bye bye.
thank you, Erica.
Okay.
Well, we that was an excellent question because there are men, one of the hardest parts of parenting, especially when children can't communicate in a reasonable way, right?
Right.
Is when they start crying or have tantrums or just you know something's wrong, you don't know when they're infants. It's all hit or miss, right? Okay,
Right.
let me change the diaper. Nope, diaper's not wet.
Yeah.
Okay, let me give them some milk. Nope, they're not hungry.
Exactly.
So it's hit or miss for a while. But
Yeah.
at some point, the different patterns of crying change.
Yes.
And you can almost, oh, they're hungry,
Right.
based on
Right.
the patterns and everything else. But when they're in that toddler stage,
Yes. Yes.
and they cry, and they're still crying because they want that piece of candy, or they want that
Mm-hmm.
toy, or
Mm-hmm.
they want you to hold them, whatever it
Right.
may be.
Right.
um, when they can't communicate, it's frustrating. So I
Yes.
appreciated what you said about,
Thank you. Yeah.
allowing them those moments, but
Mm-hmm.
later on, when because many times I find they may not be able to tell you anything, but they understand what you're telling them.
Exactly. Exactly. Always do they. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I can imagine. So what are some of the additional challenges when it's not just that they're an infant or a toddler, but also that they are dealing with some mental challenges or physical challenges, right? That they can't communicate about.
The
Okay.
hell?
Yeah, you're there.
Can
We
you?
hear you.
I can't hear you. Can't hear you.
Well, I see there's a delay, but I can hear you. So, you know what, Michelle? Go out and come back in. And while you're out, I'm going to share one of our sponsors, and we'll take a brief break while you go out and come back in. Okay.
I can't hear you.
Do you know how many people are harmed by domestic violence every day? Every minute, 20 people are physically abused by an intimate partner. Do you know what the leading cause of homelessness is for women? Domestic violence. Do you know how domestic violence ends? Through your help. If you know someone who needs help from abuse, please call Portal to Hope at 781 338 7678. Portal to Hope is a survivor driven team seeking to provide shelter, safety, and a pathway to gaining an abuse free life. Call Portal to Hope at 781 338 7678. We are here to help.
And we're back with Michelle Allen. Michelle, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay, great.
I don't know what happened.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. Sometimes it's hard because we have different internet
Okay.
providers, and there's delays in where you are, where we are, time zones, and everything else. But we can see you and we can hear you.
Okay, that's good.
So you were sharing, we were talking about um, the things that you recommend to parents when they're frustrated about the crying and everything,
Yes.
and I asked what happens when that's compounded because the child has either a learning or physical disability that prevents them, or maybe they're on the spectrum.
Right. So that's a good question because when children are on the spectrum or they have special needs, it is at that point now it becomes an individualized, right? It's individualized planning, development, teaching, and each child is different. So each case is special to to that person, to that individual. And so in this case, it is basically child based. So I've dealt with autistic children, I've dealt with children who've had ADHD, and I've had to do a lot of research. I had to find out, with children, what calms them down. So, like for autistic children, I used to provide weighted book bags, and that was very calming. And I still spoke to the child and I still told the child, when we put the book bag on, why we're putting the book bag on, because telling a child why you're doing something, people think they're 3, they're 4, they're 5, or they're special needs and they just don't get it. But you'd be surprised how soothing that is to a child when you explain to them why we're doing this. And even an autistic child can understand, when you say we're doing this, you don't handicap them because they're special needs. You just find a softer way to engage them in the discipline or in the boundary that you're setting, and that you let them know that this is a safe place and this is what you're doing. So it's just a unique way of expressing to the child the reasoning for this and still allowing the child to cry, letting the child, have that moment. Because again, it is very important that a child is allowed to express their feelings, their emotions. And like I said, each case is definitely unique to that individual child.
Michelle, what is the purpose of a weighted book bag?
So a weighted book bag, it calms an autistic child. It brings down their moods. It brings down their, that emotional state that they're in. It makes them feel comforted and it grounds them. So when
Hmm.
you put on a weighted book bag, yes, when you put a weighted book bag on a child, an autistic child who's having like either behaviorals, they're throwing stuff, they're being aggressive or they're rough, it sends a signal. to them that tells them it's okay. It's time to calm down. And it works. And if you don't have a weighted book bag, because they can be costly, you can weigh down a book bag yourself. You can put things in a book bag and you can strap it on the child and it calms them down. It brings them to a comfort level. It makes them feel comfortable.
Okay. I've never heard of it. But so you're saying that you actually, a parent actually purchases a weighted book bag. It's already heavy. So it's not that
Yes.
they have to put anything in it.
Right.
It's
Yes.
deliberately made heavy.
Yes. And I actually purchased some when I had my daycare because I saw I had several children who I was able to see at an early age would probably heading in that direction. And that's again, I would talk to the parent because I want to be the first one to tell you that there might be something going on, right? Because let's face it, your child sees the pediatrician once a year after age 1. Okay? That one visit is not going to tell that pediatrician if your child is autistic, if your child has signs or anything, right? Because it's you who advocates for your child. So
Mhm.
I feel like I had the child long more than the parent did. So I became the advocate now for the child, and my advocating went from me to the parent, and hopefully from the parent to the pediatrician or to birth to 3. That's a program we have here that a clinician comes in and works with the child from birth to 3 on these developments and diagnosings and different things like that. So I had a lot, that
Mhm.
I was dealing with, that I had to oversee and make sure that these children did not fall through the cracks, right? Because let's face it, sometimes they go through life and no one's advocating. And so it is very important to know these things. When you have an autistic child, how do you care for an autistic child? And I had to research, I had to study. So I didn't just do daycare. I got off the clock and at night I was looking at why this young man behaved this way. What could I do to strengthen that emotion but at the same time provide a safe place for him? And so
Right.
that's where I got introduced to the weighted book bag, and I did my research and I did my studies and I bought one and I wanted to try it out and I wanted to see, like, does it even work for, people who don't have autism? Like, will it calm me down? So these are definitely things, these resources, this information is out there, and we have to search for it.
I admire you for that. The caller, Erica, sent an email to say, please let Michelle know that I absolutely, all caps, loved her response to my question.
Okay.
But
Thank you,
uh,
Erica.
so this email says, I've heard about the weighted book bags, but I've never used. My son has been described as autistic. He's 4 years old.
Okay.
Would this work for him?
Yes and no. So let's talk about why you're looking at the weighted book bag. The weighted book bag is something for more of a behavioral, right? Is her son overly active? Can he, because there's different levels on the spectrum. If he's not showing any signs of aggression, if he's not, showing any signs of needing to be soothed or calmed, then the book bag probably annoy him more than it would help him.
Okay.
So you want to make sure that the behaviors that that your child needs to be calmed, your child needs soothing, your child is running around and you can't keep them contained, and those things, yes, it will help drastically. And during that time, though, I always tell parents there's always a two-part to this, right? You don't just buy the book bag and put it on the kid and now he's sitting. You take that time and you talk to him and you say, okay, you calm now? Okay, good job. And then you work through the problem because you want the child to identify the book bag with a solution and not just here comes the book bag again. Because, like any child, autistic or non autistic, will start to notice that's more of a punishment than it is of a soothing. So you want to talk to the child at all times.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's so you made me think about so in your experience,
Yes.
a parent who doesn't know what you know, who hasn't had the benefit of any daycare teacher, supervisor, attendant, whatever, sharing with them that kind of benefit, possibly that could be a benefit.
Right.
But I'm thinking that there's a parent who has a child with ADHD, very hyper, very
Yes.
high strung, very,
Yes.
got to move, got to do
Yes.
things. And they're maybe not in touch with it.
Okay.
They didn't have them diagnosed. Does the book bag do something similar for them? Because we already know they need to have that their pediatrician or somebody take a closer look
Right.
at this. But I'm thinking
So
that the parents thinking, well, I'll just get a weighted book bag and put it on my hyper child, and that'll slow them down, right?
yeah, so ADHD I don't see. I won't say it won't help. I don't really see how it would help because the benefit of the weighted book bag was designed for autistic children and for the things that they struggle with and um just helping as a calming mechanism, right? And with ADHD, it's not necessarily that the child's not calm, right? The child's just unfocused or they have impulsivity disorders, right? So they're impulsive. And so putting a weighted book bag on may not make them feel pleasant, right? So it may make them
Yeah.
feel weighted down. And now you get the reverse effect. Instead of calming, you get agitated. And so you have to be very careful and very mindful when you are dealing with these different um children when you have children with different special needs like autism and ADHD. You don't want to take something that was intended for an autistic child and try to use it in with an ADHD child because then you get a different reaction. But again, each child is different and something might work for a child who suffers from ADHD. And that's the beauty of trial and error, right? You try something, it doesn't work, you know it's not a fit, so then you move on to the next thing. I
Yeah.
know it definitely works for autistic children though.
Right. Well,
Definitely.
I'm glad because I don't know these things. This is your expertise, your
Right.
field.
Yeah.
But I can just imagine
Hmm.
because I know people who are ADHD, and I
Yes.
know parents who have children who have ADHD, and
Yes.
I can just see if they put that book back on
Right.
that kid,
Yeah. And it would
they are
fly
going to
them.
be
Yes.
ticked off. Not
Yes.
so the book bag works like what they have now for animals, these safety jackets or
Yeah.
whatever that calm
Yeah.
them down.
Yes.
I
Yes.
understand. Yeah.
Yes. And now with ADHD, what I find works. Okay, because ADHD is they have a focusing problem, and sometimes it as they get older, it does cause other mental health issues, right? So the ADHD will tend to have them doing impulse things, right? Or they're starting to become an overthinker, and it makes them want to do things that can or cannot be harmful to themselves, right? Because it's them being left idle. So with ADHD kids, what I recommend parents to do is to find things stimulating like Legos, things like Rubik's Cubes, things that cause the mind to be focused on that individual activity and to not leave any ADHD child with a project too long because then they get bored. So I have a child here and what we do is we rotate the activity every hour to every hour and a half. So a typical Saturday looks like they wake up, they're on the Rubik's Cube. They go from the Rubik's Cube to another like Legos for another hour and a half. They go from Legos to another activity. And what that does is it keeps them hands on and it also causes their mind to stay focused on the task at hand, helping them to learn focusing in the process. So that's what you do for ADHD.
Right. And that's
Mhm.
good because they'll find out later on, especially when they hit those high school years, et cetera, where they can't get up and move and have to
Yes.
sit still and focus.
Yes.
But
Yes. And
yeah,
so you're almost like, it's almost like training them, right? Without them even realizing they're being trained. But then they get so accustomed to it that you add the time longer and longer each time so that they're now doing the task even longer.
wow.
And the hopes are by the time they do hit high school that they can actually sit for the 45-minute classes each class, right? Okay. So
Yeah. So
Mhm.
speaking of schools, you speak at schools.
Yes. Yes.
And so what are the topics that you address in the school systems?
So I've done a speech on depression. So during the yeah, so I had a depression speech because a lot of children nowadays appear to be depressed, and that seems to be a very serious one: depression and anxiety. So I've spoken on bullying. I've spoken on depression. I did speak a little bit on social media, the pros and the cons, and why limiting themselves is very important at this, especially at this age, because of all the different things that they can encounter as they get older by just being on social media. So I've talked about things of that nature in the schools. I've talked about mental health. I've talked about knowing the signs, the triggers in your bodies when they don't feel good. When you feel something, say something. I had bad touches, good touches. These are things that, children are facing, right? So you want to kind of speak on things that children can relate to, and things that children may not hear at home because no one's talking about it anymore, right? People are just living their lives and no one's discussing these issues, and these children are going through them. So I've had topics like that for
Mhm.
the children: the importance of education and why education is important. Whether you agree with it or not, it's important. It's the way to kind of involve and engage yourself and enlighten yourself on the world around you so that you can grow up to be successful. So I've had success conversations, motivational speeches on success and what success looks like. Success is not the same for everybody, right? So we talked about success being within you. Success is the individual for me.
Mhm.
So your success, Regina, and my success may look totally different, but
Right.
I cannot say you're not successful. And you can't say I'm not successful, because our level of success is defined by our gifts, our goals, and our desires. And so
Yes.
those are the things that I speak to the children about.
What are some of the or one or two of the primary questions though when you go and speak in schools? What are some of one or two of the most common questions though that students ask you?
So the one question on the depression is, they always ask me, well, how do you know if you've never been depressed? And so I try to explain to them, depression is different, right? There's people who live with depression, and there's people who've encountered being depressed. And so what I explain to them is, living with it and experiencing it, the only difference is one has it longer than the other. And when I break that down to them, it's shocking because I break it down in a way that they can understand. I might be depressed because I lost my mother. That might happen for a period of time and I may come out of it. I may not forget she's passed away, but I went through a level of depression. I went through those emotions you're going through. You may go through them longer. You may need medication. I may not. But the point is, we both have experienced depression. So I can speak on depression because I've lived through moments of depression. And you may live with depression and you may be medicated, but depression is still depression. It's a feeling that doesn't feel good. And so when
Yeah.
I say that, it's like they're like, oh, yeah. So everybody's been depressed. And then they feel like they're not different. They just have it longer, right? So I try to explain it to them. But that's one of the main questions. And then the other question is, well, if social media is so bad, why does it exist? And so that's the smart aleck question. And my answer to them is always simple. It's everything that exists that may be good or bad for us, it still exists, right? Because otherwise the word bad wouldn't exist and neither would the word good. So in order for bad to exist, we have to have bad things exist. And nothing you do in life constantly is healthy. Nothing. You can eat chocolate every day. At the end of the day, it's not healthy to eat chocolate every day, right? Being on a phone all
Really?
day long. Well, really, yeah, like really, like I know we want to do it, but it's not good, right?
Yes.
So when children are on social media all day,
Yeah.
that's not healthy. You're not doing anything. You're not productive. How is being on social media getting your grades up? How is being on social media watching other people do stuff all day helping you clean your room? How is it helping you motivate? How are you going? You're not even going outside. You don't communicate. And then when you say that, they're like, oh, so we can do it, just not all day, right? And so you try to help them explain because these are young kids. They don't understand,
Right.
right? They don't get it. So you have to kind of talk to them on their level. You have to tell them everything in moderation.
Yeah.
No one's saying, but then I tell them too, if you're going to be on it, make it work for you. You have the whole world in your hand. You actually have the entire world in your hand. Make it work for you. Become successful through what you do on social media. Don't
Mm,
allow it to take you and to keep you doormat.
right.
So yes, but those are the two top questions all the
Okay.
time.
But that makes sense. That makes
Yeah.
sense. And I want to ask you one last thing because our time is winding down. I cannot believe how quickly it went.
Yes.
But the last question is you're speaking in prison systems, right?
Yes. Yes.
So what's the message there? What are the topics there in that environment?
Well, okay, so my speaking in the prisons are a little different. So when I speak there, it's not like collectively. So it's not like a group. So it's like individual, right?
Oh,
And
okay.
so, right. And so with the inmates there, my thing with them is what do you want to do? What do you want to do when you get out? What is your plan? Because if you don't have a plan, you're going to go right back to the same thing, right? And you have to realize that your plan can't be jail talk. It has to be real talk because jail talk is not a plan. It's just something that you convince yourself you're going to do, and you convince everybody in the outside world you're going to do when you get out, and then it fails because it wasn't planned.
Mm,
So once you have a concrete plan and you have a blueprint and you have something that shows when I get out, this is what I need to do. Also, this is what I need to refrain from because that's important. You need to know why you ended up in here and you need to know what you need not to do when you come back out so that you don't end up in here again. And so it's just kind of like a motivation to let them know that this right here doesn't have to be your final destination. You're here right now, and there's a second chance for you outside of those doors. But what are you going to do with it? Are you going to let it, you're going to let it make you, or you're going to let it break you? Because the only place you're coming back is here.
right.
And so, you talk to them and you try to get them to see that there is life after this, you know? So that's exactly what I do with them.
Well, what I'm hearing though is that the things that you have engaged yourself in and been
Mhm.
involved with, from children to parents to from infants to young adults to and even in the world there are parents and young
Yes.
adults and even children in some cases in our correctional institutions, right?
Yes. Yes.
And so you've covered the gamut, and every group that you address, you're giving them an opportunity to express themselves and helping them to analyze what they
Mhm.
feel,
Yes.
their behaviors, their viewpoints, and then motivating them to positively change their outcome or pursue the outcomes that they're looking for. And I love that, Michelle. That is different and
Mhm.
that's unique. So the question is, what's next? Now what?
Now it's like a world of opportunities, right? So I'm currently involved in Toastmasters, and I've gotten so many ideas of where I want to go next. I actually want to I want to take this further, right? So I want to reach audiences. So I've been working on some things where I'm going to be self-promoting myself to bigger organizations, bigger groups, looking in the mental health field, because I think the mental health field, no one's speaking to them, right? No one's letting them know it's okay. And just having the children I have in my home has shown me where there's a greater need for motivation. There's a greater need for life coaching, spiritual coaching, someone to just reach out. And so I'm looking at some organizations that will allow me to come into the hospitals and speak to the patients that are inside struggling with mental health, and just trying to build them up so that when they do come out of the hospitals, that they feel like they have some information, some help, some things that motivate them to be better and to do better.
Well, that's no small thing.
No,
what,
no,
what
right. Yeah,
you're
that's
doing.
that's 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 different, right?
But I think all of our viewers and listeners would agree with me that the one thing we have found about your journey is that you're not going after peanuts. You're
No,
not, and
no.
and I applaud you for that, because when you think small, you do little.
Exactly.
When you think
Exactly.
big, you can do lots.
Yes.
And so to all of those of you who are listening and viewing, this one is thinking big and
Yes,
she's going
definitely.
places. But the main thing is, we can all tell that what you want to do is not meant to fulfill you, it's meant to help others.
Right.
And
Right.
that fulfills you.
Yes.
So we are grateful. I just want to say thank you for taking time to spend with us this evening and being our guest on the Winning Women Talk Show, because you are a winning woman.
Thank you.
And we wish you nothing but the best in your pursuits. And thank you for helping families, parents, and children. And thank you for the work that you do. Thank
Thank
you
you,
for being
Regina. And thank you for having me.
my pleasure. For those of you who have been with us this evening, as you know, we are on each and every Thursday evening at the same time. And you can watch us on YouTube, listen to us on RGB Internet Radio, the app. It's free. You can download it from the Google or the Apple stores. You can listen to us on www.rgbinternetradio.com. And if you missed a portion of this show and you want to see it later, by next week, starting Monday, you can watch it again on YouTube channel or on rgbinternetradio.com. It'll be there, loaded in our schedule of shows. And if you like this kind of show, then Monday nights you can watch Talk Time with Robert Brown as he talks about current, regional, national, and international issues that we're all talking about, all hearing each and every day. He brings on some great guests who address some of those issues that we hear in the news way too often. But that's 8 o'clock on Monday nights. It's called Talk Time. Join Robert Brown. If you love music, I'm going to tell you on Saturdays, if you like oldies but goodies, you can join DJ Bobby B with Let's Go Back. He plays the oldies but goodies from the 70s, 80s, even 60s sometimes. And on Sunday, if you're a person of worship and faith, you can join Bishop Robert Brown on Sunday morning, 6:30 to 8:30 on Sunday Morning Glory on RGB Internet Radio. Thank you for being with us this evening. And again, thank you, Michelle. Thank you. Same time, same place next Thursday. And we are out of here now. Thanks for joining us this evening.